My name's Leon Kolaski, and I'm here with Keith Yackey. I've been working with Keith for about 6 or 8 months now, and wanted to share his customer journey in working with myself and my team.
Yeah.
So Keith, to start things off, when you think of Leon Kolaski, what do you think of? What comes to mind first?
Well, I think of a dude that's super loyal and shows up for his friends. Because I had known you before we started working together as a friend for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the way you showed up as a friend, I thought, man, if this is the way he shows up for clients, and then we're gonna have a great success. So that's what I think initially when I think of you.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Yeah.
When you first started working with me, was there any reason that you thought I have to work with this guy?
Yeah, well, you obviously come off as knowing what you're doing, right? But, you know, I was in a situation, probably much like maybe many of these listeners, is where they either had a guy who was kind of doing it, or I was trying to kind of do it. Like, I had a guy set things up and I was supposed to maintain it, and that worked great until my ad got shut down. And then I shit my pants and I'm like, well, what do I do now? Then I got it back on, but I just felt so vulnerable. Like, yeah, so I was like, I want to have a guy that I can go to and okay, hey, can we test this? Hey, what do we do? I didn't really know anything about it. Even though I'd been through courses and I thought I knew something about it, I didn't really know anything about it.
Mm-hmm. And so can you describe what it was like in your business before you started working with me and what it's like now?
Yeah, so I think that any business owner, when they're trying to drive cold traffic into their offers, they want as high a quality as they possibly can. And so if we're going to say from the very get-go, what was one of the biggest indicators that, wow, I'm so glad I went with Leon, was the quality of leads. Meaning, I'm jumping on the phone and I'm like, this person actually can afford my thing, and this is a good fit for them. Like, they're going to want this and it's going to really benefit their life, which obviously makes anybody who has an organization selling anything to anybody, makes you feel really good because you know it's that perfect match. Mm-hmm. That's what you really helped me do.
Very cool.
That's what you did for us and do for the team here.
And now, was there anything that surprised you? Any surprises along the way?
In terms of...
In terms of working with me?
No, not really. I mean, we were friends, and maybe people who are considering hiring you or working with you don't have that benefit yet, but I want to speak from my place of authenticity, and that is, I knew you as a friend, I knew you as a great guy, and you continue to show up that way in our dealings. Like, it didn't change. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, all right, now we're all business and I'm a dick, and it wasn't that way. It was like, hey, there's a couple things that actually I really liked about it. I wasn't surprised by it, but I really liked, if you want to ask me that, or do you want me to get into that?
Yeah.
One of the things that I really liked that you did was, we talked about the brand Bible, we talked about who I am, we talked about, you know, how do we say the right things to get the right people to respond. And even though I'm like great on camera and I've been doing this for a long time, there were some things that you were able to help me think through and articulate that made it, I think, why some of this messaging is landing and resonating so much.
Yeah, so really doing that work up front is what was a little bit of the secret sauce in getting the right people to come out of the end of the funnel.
Yeah, and I don't think people understand that.
No.
They don't understand that it is really hard to sell meat to a vegetarian. So quit putting your meat ads in front of vegetarians. That's like, to me, that's the easiest analogy that most people are struggling with. And so when I'm like, I went over to you and I noticed almost immediately, and within the first, 2 or 3 weeks, because, it took my funnel kind of depleting and the new stuff coming in, I was like, wow, what a different quality lead. I mean, that's everything.
Absolutely.
I mean, I would even say that the quantity went up, but the quality was so much different. Mm-hmm. Even if I had the same amount of leads, but they were better quality, it means my closing ratio went up, and they were just a better people that I wanted to work with.
Mm-hmm. And what would you tell to somebody that is thinking about hiring myself and my team?
Like if they were on the fence? Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. I'm just going to look at the camera because I'm going to talk to them. Here's the thing, is there's a lot of people out there that have a Facebook guy. And, I got a guy who does this. And typically in the online space, or if you're looking for somebody, people recommend usually the people with the most ads out there bragging about their thing. You know what I mean? And some of those guys are really great. I know some of them, they're my friends. But when it really came down to, hey, listen, do you want to have somebody who's there that's not just going to be able to manually run your ads? Anybody can learn that. You can go buy a $299 course and learn that. But it doesn't translate to what's the strategy and through the whole thing. You got to think the whole thing through. And that's what Leon and his team do so well, is they help you think through what's the whole strategy, so that way at the end you're not having to fight objection after objection after objection, or selling to somebody who doesn't really, they don't really belong, but you're kind of like, wow, we need the sale. I felt like a lot of that is eliminated. I feel now that I love my offer. I love what we can do for people. And so when I'm on the phone, I'm just like, hey, listen, either this is for you or it's not. I don't feel like I have to wrangle. And I think if you're on the fence and you're saying, I want more leads, that I know for a fact has built up over the 6 months. We definitely have way more leads than we did. But the quality of leads, if that's what you're looking for, you're like, I want my people, I want my tribe to find me, I would highly, highly, highly recommend Leon.
Awesome. And but really what it comes down to is the difference between somebody that's a world-class marketer and somebody that's a Facebook ads person.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think down the road, the Facebook ads skill is going to be taken over by AI, and it's something that really it comes down to core messaging, how you communicate with people and, connect with people. And like you said, the quality of the people that show up on the calls are so much better.
Yeah, and there's so much to do about that. So that I'm really glad you mentioned that, because you are a world-class marketer and you're thinking through, well, what is their pain? What are they going through? How are we fishing with the right bait? But there's also the setup, which I don't think a lot of people understand. It's like, well, what demographic are we going after? What psychographic are we going after? There's a feathering of those together in a way that's, it's almost like there's things that are overlaid, where most people are playing with 2 sheets, you're playing with 5, and it's getting that. It's just, I hate to use the word better targeting because that sounds a little cliche, but it really is. Like you're aiming our Death Star at like the real people we're trying to get a hold of.
And that message is very clear. It's just going right to that person. So like they're like, oh, you know me,
Yeah, and
so
you didn't ask me to change who I was. You knew who I was. You're like, this is Keith, and so we need to portray him the best. And I think sometimes when you're considering who you want to work with, if you come into their domain, maybe you're not really good at marketing. I love marketing. It's one of my fortes as well. But maybe there's some people in here that are considering hiring you that aren't marketers per se. And they're like, oh no, if I get into the hands of this guy, is he going to try and change everything about me and everything about my business? And that can be kind of nerve-wracking. Like, well, who is this guy? I don't really know him. And I didn't find you do that. You basically said, hey, listen, here's some great things you're doing. Here's some things we might want to tweak. And then let me do my thing on my end. You guys were also really attentive about, hey, this is what we do. These are the kind of results we've gotten. So I didn't feel like you were like, all right, the sheriff's in town now. It was more like, let me hear what you got going on and let's see what we can do to make this better. I loved that approach.
Very cool. And what would you tell, do you think that the strategies that I use would work in any industry?
Yeah, I do feel like the strategies you employ would work in any industry, but I also feel like you're smart enough to know which would work in what industry and which wouldn't. You know what I mean? It's like, you'd be like, okay, well, Keith, you're offering this, and this is why these 3 things are really important to your prospects. But if somebody else was in a different thing, you'd be like, well, but this is the 3. Like, for example, a couple of our friends that you work with, we couldn't be in further different niches, and you've helped them with strategies that I don't think would work for me, but have worked really well for them. And they're more e-commerce, more like product-based, more that type of thing, whereas I'm more consultancy and coaching-based.
Absolutely.
If you're one of those people, I think what you would want to do is you can walk in this confidently knowing that Leon has worked the spectrum. Because some people are just like, we know how to get coaching clients. And that's all they do.
Yeah.
But, man, you've sold teeth whiteners and toothpaste that's ground up charcoal from 7 million years ago in the dinosaurs. Like, what, you know what I mean? You've sold a lot of stuff.
And so many of my friends and clients, so, I think that also helps too, that you just have seen, it's not my first rodeo.
No, well, dude, I've met you maybe close to 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It's about 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, I've had a chance to observe, and you have been working with that same client that I met 5 years ago. People don't typically change out something that's working.
Absolutely.
So there's... that's what I was able to observe. And there might be some people watching that you may or may not know me, but I think you can at least tell I'm being genuine enough to realize that if I wouldn't do this if I didn't really believe, so wholeheartedly in that what you've been able to do for me has been freaking amazing. I've told my wife, I'm like, so much has changed with Leon around, which and it's just that peace of mind, that confidence.
So if you were to pick 3 words that describe me and my team, what would those 3 words be?
Other than easy peasy, lemon squeezy, which is 4. No, I would say easy to work with. That's another 4 words. I can't boil this down to 3. I really am not gonna be. I wish, but way better leads. Way better leads.
Way better leads. Okay. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Keith. I
Thanks,
appreciate
brother.
it.
Appreciate you.